wasted living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know, okay, what you truly want to happen. I mean, he is probably the best entrepreneur of our times. Okay? He put in this paragraph what I spent the last 20 minutes saying, but he wrote it beautifully, succinctly, and just very emotionally. Right? So for all of you entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, it is very important for you to just take these words and say, okay, what do I want to be? Do I want to listen to myself, or do I want to listen to other people? And with that, questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
As you said, you're already ahead of the curve.
It's a great inspirational speech from you. Thank you for that. As you said, we're already ahead of the curve, in terms of social media, and then, we have cloud. What's next? Next 5 to 10 years.
So, I'll tell you, there are some very, very interesting things that are developing. I mean, I'm not saying social is dead. I'm just saying social will morph into something that is going to look very different. Okay? The use of, or the applications on top of social, maybe, right? But let me give you, another very, very interesting thing. I mean, we had a company which is the most amazing company that walked in. It's a technology company that was doing power, reduction on 25 nanometer chips. Okay? Where all of a sudden, your chip now draws, 40% less power. Okay? So what happens is we go in cycles. When I started at Intel, it was bare metal programming. It was assembly or PLM, right? Then came C, and then came Java, and then came JavaScript, right? Right now, you lean on a keyboard and you could be writing programs. It's become that simple, right? So that cycle, right now what's happening is the platform has reached a point where we can build very cool apps, and that's what you're seeing, this plethora of lifestyle applications. Y Combinator churns out more companies than Dunkin' Donuts does donuts. Right? But what happens is typically there will be an inflection point where, for example, the way the whole cloud thing started, right? It just happened and people started to realize, oh my God, this is big. What they're trying to do is take away the cost of maintaining this huge IT organization. I'll give you an example. One of my failed startups, Mercoro, we'd built one of the largest peer-to-peer radio networks. So what we did was we wanted to go make peer-to-peer legal. So I read up copyright law, and I said, well, we can make it into a radio station so it becomes legal. So we had 6 million people streaming. For the 6 million people, the data center I had was enormous. In today's world, I'd have probably needed 500 instances on Amazon, and bang, you're off to the races. So cloud was a big thing. Can I envision what the next big thing is going to be? Hell no. Sometimes you will see it, sometimes you don't. I think a new model for search will emerge in the next 5 to 10 years. I think a new model for laying out the web will emerge. There's some pretty amazing technologies that just render websites as magazines. Again, it's all about how do you take this world's, the largest library that humanity's ever created, and actually convert it into knowledge. Okay. So, long-winded way of answering a question, I don't know. Any other questions?
Yeah. You have been involved in several startups yourself over the course of your career. Now, this is more philosophical, maybe. Being passionate, is it required that somebody should be 100% passionate in whatever idea or vision that he has to be a successful entrepreneur? Now, if a person is passionate on one idea and some contradictory ideas creep in, the passion goes down a little. It comes back up. Now, this thing that is going up and down, is it still considered passion? Or is this guy not qualified to be an entrepreneur?
No. You bring up a very good point, and I think I addressed that, which is you're basically saying I'm all over the map, right? And it's fair. It's okay. That's being human, right? Typically, I will think about my next startup 3 years into my current one, because what happens is I get bored. I get bored easily. Okay. McAfee from start to finish was 5 years. Okay. And the day the deal happened, I said, I'm done. And take my year off and start working on the next one, right? But no, answer your question, not at all. That's the DNA of an entrepreneur. Okay. Right now, the other problem with being a serial entrepreneur is the one thing that you cannot beat is time. Okay, so I increase the pace at which I do startups now. So I got my fifth, there's probably sixth brewing, and there's probably a seventh, because I said, look, I'm tired of this doing it linearly every 4 years. They may have to, bring in a wheelchair, for my last one, if you go sequentially. But no, that is a perfectly acceptable, reasonable behavior for an entrepreneur, because your brain is telling you that I think there's another idea, right? It may piss off your investors. You say the guy's distracted. You think of something else, right? But you have to follow your heart. If you think the other idea is actually going to be better, then you make that call. But don't ever you can't shortchange whatever you're doing, put a nice bow and tie around it and give it over to someone else and then go to your next one.
When you started your first startup, what were you prepared to risk? And is there a line where you should stop?
Okay, that is a very, okay. So the first startup, I dropped out of Northwestern, came here and joined my company, my cousin. And initially it was food, board, and lodging. I was just happy someone was feeding me, someone gave me a bed, and I got to work on cool stuff. The group work company that I started was one of my not so smart decisions, where I took a lot of the money that I made on the first company and put it into this one. And the reason I did that was I couldn't raise venture capital. Okay. And that went broke, right? And we came close to being broke. So there is a line that you should not cross. No, once you have just a big hit, then it doesn't matter. Okay? Mercora didn't matter. I put a $5 million check into the company and it went down, I didn't care. It was a rounding error, right? But when you're starting early, you want to be careful. Okay? And when you're starting early, I did all this when my son was 1 year old. Okay, had a mortgage, and we pretty much took everything we had and just put it into this company. It's like, if you're a poker player, it's like going all in, right? The unfortunate thing is you're going all in with everything that you had, and so you have to. It is hard to teach people that unless you have hindsight vision. Okay, so I tell a lot of my friends who want to be entrepreneurs. I said, look, take whatever you have in your bank, okay? Take 30% of it, or 20% of it, and draw just a hard line, and don't spend more than that. Now, the way the venture capitalists work is very different. They'll say, hey, I want you to build the whole app, I want you to get 5 million users, and then come to me for funding. Some of them, right? My advice to, if you're in a situation like that is go find angels, go find, seed investors, do a convertible note, raise 100, 200K. Try not to take money out of your pocket. You got to remember, the venture capitalist is playing with someone else's money. You should play the same game.
Two questions. But first, I have to thank you for building McAfee. I'm an entrepreneur and spent the last 10 months consulting McAfee, which helped me bootstrap my own company.
Oh, very good.
So
very
thank you
good.
for that.
Yeah, that's another way to, bootstrap your company. Consult with someone else.
So two questions. One, are you an active angel investor? And if so, what do you look at as an angel investor? And second, I'd love to learn more about Idea Toaster.
Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur, fundraising, so both are interesting to me.
Am I an active angel investor? I'm an active angel investor in the sense that I do angel investments, between 500K and $1 million, but I always do it in conjunction with my venture firm. Plainly because I don't have the cycles to, go sit in on board meetings and make sure that the guy's delivering and things like that. So I'll piggyback on a venture round coming in versus actually going in, being one of the first 2 or 3. Idea Toaster is just purely something to, keep my sanity going, right? Which is, I just, I spin up multiple projects, multiple ideas, most of which fail before they even see the light of day. But there's a couple that kind of get a life of their own, and then what we do is we put more people on it, and then at some point we spin it out and go get a venture round. My 5th company is one of those things that we spun out of Idea Toaster. Is there another one? There probably is. But it's a nice way to just keep me busy and give me something to do, during the weekday instead of just sitting at home and driving my wife crazy.
Do you invest in India in a lot of the e-commerce that a lot of things are going on in there?
I don't invest in India for one reason. One is it's hard enough doing a startup. Doing a startup in that chaotic environment is even harder, right? And I just don't know. I left India 30 years ago. When I go to India, except to see my dad and mom, right, it feels alien to me. It feels alien to me because the whole world has changed there. Right? And I'd be stupid if I went in and invested in a company thinking I know how that market is, because my view of India was circa 1981, when Dev Anand was alive and all that stuff. So I live a little bit in a time warp machine that way. But to answer your question, do I see India becoming an enormous force? Absolutely. I look at I'm helping a company in Bangalore purely because I like the CEO. But I'm just not smart enough to go figure that
Because a lot
system
of
out.
hedge funds and venture funds are putting money, like Flipkart got $200 million with a $1 billion valuation.
So what they do, right? What they do is they go get feet on the ground in India. People who know the space, who know the nooks and crannies of doing business in India, and who can work with the regulation that India keeps passing on a regular basis, right? As an individual investor, it's very hard for me. I just wouldn't even dream of it. There's so much low-hanging fruit just within 40 miles of where we are, right? You drive into San Francisco, go into a bar, you'll find 4 companies that you can fund right there. That's how it is. That's how most of these guys find their deal flow, at least the seed stage, right? But going back, I'm sure with the right expertise, with the right knowledge, that's a market that can be. So this company is actually an iPhone, iPad developer. Sequoia is invested in them. It's called SourceBits. They're in Bangalore. 400 engineers. Brilliant CEO. Is an ex-doctor, and guys lighting things on fire. So
Mr. Gopala and I are thinking about a fund in India for the NIT
as long as you feel comfortable, you know the market, you know the landscape, I'm sure you're going to be successful. Because there are, India is evolving from a services-based economy to a product economy, very early stages. But I look at companies like Yatra.com and some of this. They're all building products, and which is great, which bodes really well for what the future is going to look like. Is it a seed fund kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me know if you're interested. Because if you're a seed fund, you will need contacts with the guys who do Series A and all that. So there's Sequoia.
Right. We're trying to get the Series A guys as part of the seed fund.
Yeah. So, you should talk to Sequoia, you should talk to Axel, you should talk to IDG.
USVP is not active.
USVP is focused a lot on the US.
Israel market.
Israel, Israel, because Checkpoint came from Israel, right? So we have a kind of an affinity for
Doom
that.
networks.
Yeah. Doom. And again, the DNA of the Israeli guys is just brilliant. I mean, they're just, they are almost very similar to the U.S. in drive and ambition. India will get there. It should be there. So, and if you guys are opening one, which is a seed stage, you're going to do it in Bangalore?
Yes.
Yeah, right. It's a good place to be. My email is srivats.sampath@gmail.com. Send me an email and I'll make the right introduction.
I come to USVP often.
You do? Who do you mean?
Jacques Benkowski.
Oh, Jacques sits across, yeah. He's right next to me.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah. Next time when I come, stop by.
Absolutely, you should do that. Yeah.
I had a question. Apple has this new technology, Siri.
Yeah.
Siri, and IBM. I worked for IBM, and I worked for Intel also for 5 years.
Yeah.
So IBM is Watson, and we are trying to push it to healthcare, insurance companies. IBM push. What do you think about future? Because from the people on the field, they have a lot of expectation out of that kind of technology.
It is.
It's mind what they want.
Yeah. No, listen. I mean, Siri. The founder of Siri is a close friend of mine, and I have followed Siri right from when it was spun out of SRI. Brilliant technology. Is it? In many ways, it kind of shows the future of where computing is headed. Is it there yet fully? No. I'm sure you saw that abortion controversy. It just didn't have the answer, and all of a sudden everyone's piling on it, right? But I was actually more impressed with Watson, because Watson not only had to find the right answer, it also had to ring in before the other guys did, right? Which is
that is tuning, hard tuning.
No, I mean, you look at natural user interfaces, that's where it's headed, right? I mean, you look at a 1-year-old playing with an iPad, and you're fascinated. They're going to grow up, and they're going to demand interfaces that don't require a keyboard at all. I mean, typing on the iPad is painful. I did this entire deck on an iPad, while driving back from Monterey, and it was not fun.
And you weren't driving.
I wasn't driving. Yeah.
So what are some of the pitfalls to avoid when you're trying to evaluate if you're worthy of being an entrepreneur? I know you mentioned being in denial is one of the good things. But what if you are in denial and you are trying to become an entrepreneur?
The market
where do you
will,
draw the line?
yeah, the market will tell you if you're looking at it through rose-colored glasses. The market will tell you, right? Because the market has a very interesting. There's a venture capitalist somewhere here, right? I mean, believe me. I mean, you go to them with an idea. They'll have 15 people. Their 4 friends. Their portfolio CEOs all look at the idea and give them feedback. Okay, so if you're really in that amount of denial, you'll get feedback. You'll get feedback as in not getting a call back. Okay. But if it's a good idea, and if they know that you're in approximately the right space, that a little bit of course correction here and a course correction there, and a couple of other things put in place that this could be of value, then, it'll work. But you literally have to be in denial to take that first step. So for example, my 5th company is a search company. Okay. Stupidest thing to ever do. Why go after search? There's Google, there's Bing, there's all these guys, there's a carcass-filled, space with so many companies that have failed. But I think there's a thesis that holds up. And so far, the people I've talked to kind of agree to that, right? Will it be successful? I have no idea. But have I been able to convince people that it's viable, that the market needs a different kind of search, and it's stood the due diligence test? Yes, right? So you just have to, you'll know very quickly. What do you do?
I'm just a programmer.
Where?
Dell Labs.
Okay.
I have a very foolish question, I don't know. Many startup companies come up, it gets funded, some of them get successful. Why they are being sold? Why the promoter should not continue with it? No, I find a lot of companies being sold just like that. And
Look,
maybe after 4 years putting such an effort and somebody takes over, or when a VC may sell it off his stake.
The reason, you sell for 2 reasons. One is...
the startup person,
yeah.
mentally he should be prepared to sell it. Then he should start up, I think, here, in this country.
No. You see, I'll tell you how it is. The reason you sell a company is because it's not going well. Okay? At least a VC-funded company. Because the ideal outcome for a VC-funded company is a public offering. Okay? The other reason you would sell a company is because the founder says, look, I'm tired. I'm tired of eating beer and pizza, working 18 hours a day. I want to take a little bit of money and move on, right? But now what's happening is the whole secondary market thing is helping with that, where, if a founder wants some liquidity, is able to sell some shares, they can make some money. But the ideal outcome, I mean, for us, at least in the venture world, the ideal outcome is an IPO. That's what I think everyone shoots for. Now, there are some acquisitions that are just awesome. I mean, YouTube, 1.8 billion, right? That's a great exit after 27 or 28 months or 18 months or something like that, right? That's a great outcome. It's math. If I put in $5 million for 20% of the company and someone's writing a check for 1.8 billion, I'll take it because it'll return my fund.
Another thing is also IPO is so expensive and so difficult to get an IPO.
It is. A lot of these companies are not public companies. I mean, if you thought Instagram is a public company, no, it's not. Yeah, they'll be acquired by somebody who will try to monetize it and things like that. But could I see one of the larger, well, one of the companies like Cloud Passage or Clustrix being a public company? Yes, I do, because you're fundamentally changing something, and you've got a business model that can grow into what the public is looking for in a company that's coming out for their money.
Means my meaning is you have put so much effort. You have made a company, somebody has taken over, and it is getting cornered by a few people. Means like in India, we set up an industry. It is always with me till maybe I'm interested to sell it. It is individual effort.
Again,
I have put so much effort. I built this. Why I should sell?
No, but there's so many pressures,
why
right?
they cannot sustain for a long period.
It goes back to the business. If the business can be sustainable, yes. If the business can't be sustainable, they're going to sell. Plus, there are pressures. I mean, if you bring in venture money in, there are requirements where, I want to return part of the fund before I, or write it down or something like that, right? So, that you can't control how it works. And but it's, in India, I mean, everyone wants to run the company till, they drop dead, right? Yeah, that's tough.
Also, one thing is, the kind of entrepreneurs here, they tend to develop the basic idea, but to scale it up, it's not easy. So that's where you need big guys. So that's when they sell off.
That's a very good point. That's an excellent point. I mean,
Means funding is a big problem to further develop.
Scaling.
Globally.
It is hard to build. I mean, YouTube right now is doing about $3 billion in business, right, in revenues. It took Google, I think, 8 years to figure that out, right? And if YouTube had been independent, by now it'd be valued at probably $20 million. Yeah. So it just, it's a nice way. I mean, I'm glad that people sell their company because it's one form of exit when there are no IPOs. If that wasn't happening either, you'll find only 10 venture firms in the valley and everybody else, in their beach.
But the venture firms own the majority most of the time anyway.
No, it depends. There is
right?
Most VCs will want for their equity 20% of the company. Okay. If you bring in 2, you give up 40. You bring in 3, you give up 60, right? It's just the way the math works, right? And if you can build out a company with just one venture capitalist, great. You give up only 20% of the company, and second time around, but there are very few companies that can be scaled or built to scale using just one VC, right? So you should be ready for any founder of a successful company, if you own between 10 to 15% of the company post your Series C round, you're doing well. Yeah. If the average is probably between 9 and 10. Yeah.
Last question.
Last
before
question.
we
Okay.
wrap up.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the rate of the technological development and the rate of adoption of these cool stuff that come in. I religiously read TechCrunch every day morning, and I see that there are cool apps coming up every day. But what happens to these cool apps, say 6 months or 1 year after that? Do you have any comment on those things?
That's a great question. I mean, I read this, I don't know if I read it on TechCrunch or whatever. There's a search engine for finding hotels that are dog friendly. Okay. I own a puppy dog, and if I have to do that, I'll find. But it got coverage on, I think, TechMeme, and I'm sure TechCrunch also. Now, here's what you got to be careful about. The news coming out is big, right? The guy writes it, goes away, he doesn't care after that. You have no idea what happened to the company after that. Maybe the dog ran away with it. It's just a very fascinating look at how the hype cycle works, right? So I'm sure, when we read TechCrunch, we see some, the guy who's come up with another social dating application, right? I mean, none of us qualify, but at least few of us qualify. But nobody ever takes the pain to come back and say, that social dating application that I put on the top of TechCrunch is now no longer in business. Nobody does that. Because there's another social dating app that's already come, that he has to write about. So the pace at which these companies are being able to, get out, right, is just increasing dramatically. But when you have so much of an oversupply, it's got to be falling somewhere. I mean, we only have, I think, between 8 and 12 hours in a day to do what we have to do. That includes taking a shower, going to work, all that stuff. How can you use all these stuff? And at some point, sanity will prevail. But there are lifestyle apps. There's a lifestyle app which tells you where you get the cheapest beer in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, sorry.
And will it be around, 10 years from now? I don't think so.
From the venture company point of view, if they invest in these companies, what do they look out for?
I have no idea. We don't invest in those kind of companies. and there's a reason. I mean, life's too short. Life's too short to be investing in those companies and worrying about is the, 21 through 25 demographic drinking enough beer to keep our business going. But, you know, it's not. It's
But
just-
having said that, the fact that Groupon went public
Yeah.
still amazes me.
The Groupon went public purely on the numbers, right? Their growth was just enormous. The challenge with Groupon is sustaining that growth. And what is it? It's a mail list. I mean, we were doing email marketing before Groupon came into business, right? So look, I mean, it's very easy for us. I always call this the monkey gathering thing, right? For us to throw peanuts at them and say, you're all screwed up, right? I'm sure they know something. They've built a business. I'm sure they're going to grow it. And if they're not going to grow it, the market's going to come and punish them. So
They're already getting punished anyway.
yeah, they're. But I keep out hope for these entrepreneurs because it's taken a lot out of them, and you know, and they built a great company. Anyway, guys, I think. Thank you so much.
Yeah, please give a big applause to Srivats again. So now I invite Dr. Om Nalamasu to come forward and give the appreciation award to Srivats Sampath.
That was a great speech. That's a really
Inspirational.
enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you. First award I've gotten many years.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.